Hello everyone. This video is an amendment to my most recently released review on Into the Radius. The feedback that I had on that video was rightfully not particularly good. I did a poor job. The video itself was rushed for numerous reasons, mostly being that I did not enjoy making it, and I got a lot of critical feedback regarding the points that I was making versus the footage that I was showing. There are also a few amendments that I would like to make regarding some of the critique that I made, as part of it seems to be my own issue rather than something with the game entirely. So, I'm going to record myself speaking and playing live from a new game. I'm leaving the performance overlay on the screen here so that you can see the various stutters and chugging that the game does as I go about doing the usual things. And hopefully the footage that I can show you here will be able to demonstrate the jank that I mentioned before. I stand by what I said previously regarding the game being spoiled by jank. However, the example footage I used in my original review was simply not good enough and not up to standard. So I'm going to play through the beginning section of the game and just play it normally and go through things and highlight the jank as it appears. Here we go. Before we continue with this video though, there is one thing that we must agree on. That Into the Radius is attempting to sell a very immersive and realistic atmosphere in how you can interact with objects and go about the world, and that for a level of immersion and realism to succeed, the small details become exponentially more vital and important to behave. Otherwise, that sense of immersion is broken. If you disagree with this idea of what makes something immersive and realistic, then you may as well stop watching the video now, because none of the examples I will show you will convince you otherwise of my point. The skipping and juddering that you're seeing on the CPU and GPU frame times are constant whether or not I'm recording. A few of you might say you're recording the footage, so it will be putting more stress on your system. You can add an extra millisecond to the GPU frame time, otherwise the behavior of the game is identical. I tested it whilst recording and not recording too. When I mentioned in my original video about the jank that occurs in this game, a lot of the background footage was of me dropping items. It turns out this was partly an issue to do with the index controllers and the bindings that I had set up. Generally, after changing those things, I no longer accidentally drop items. So I would like to amend that and apologize for the unfair accusations I made. That being said, there is still some inherent issues with the controller bindings, which appear to be on the programming side. Firstly, you can't choose a default binding, and this is on the live branch of the game as well. I can go to choose another in an attempt to rectify this, and down here we have the official bindings, but I cannot activate them. They do not work. The only way for me to attempt to reset my bindings was to use another community uploaded source. So whilst part of that complaint was definitely my fault, there is still something weird going on with the binding settings in the game. One of the issues I mentioned before was how your arms will judder in a really jarring way, especially when you see it in the headset itself when playing at higher frame rates. I was playing at 120 FPS at the time. If dropping the game down to 90 FPS, then that judder goes away. There is still some kind of slow motion feeling about it, but that might be part of the overall game feel. However, whilst this issue can be fixed, it is still very jarring and shouldn't exist. The developers should have programmed a means of having the game respond properly at all frame rates. But again, it can be fixed. Weapon cleaning is one of the coolest features of this game. It's very immersive and a great way to make use of VR. The performance goes into the toilet whenever you spray a weapon, and I can only hope that that will be rectified, because on lower end systems that will destroy your FPS and make for a very jarring experience. But when you are cleaning your weapon, you will note that if you dare do anything that is beyond lightly brush the weapon, then your arm will twist and contort, and overall it's incredibly janky, and sadly it takes you out of the experience. You might think this is being nitpicky, but again, if the game is striving for immersion, then these things need to be taken care of. My suggestion is that the toothbrush itself should be the thing that bends and flexes on the weapon rather than contorting and twisting your entire arm, like so, as it is really immersion shattering. And you as a player have to work to prevent it from doing that if you wish to keep your immersion. It's no good, it's janky. Alongside that, when using smaller weapons like pistols, if you were to place it standing on the vise, which I think is the natural thing that you would instinctively do, then your weapon will fall through the vise, despite it looking almost closed. This is janky and takes you out of the experience, as you have to try and work around this jank constantly. In attempting to demonstrate the weapon cleaning, I also encountered another piece of jank that is incredibly jarring as well. Your arm can outstretch, as in every VR game. However, Into the Radius is special in that when you grab an item, it doesn't only put your hand into a pose, it poses your entire arm length as well. So, when you grab something, what normally happens is that your grip will shift backwards a little bit, depending on how you're holding an item. If I hold the torch like this, and now attempt to place it onto the desk, my arm gets stuck and locked in this grip, despite my controller being above the shelf here, causing me to have to step forward and place it that way, which is incredibly jarring and very janky and takes you out of the experience. As you can see here, when I drop the item, my arm will teleport to where my controller really is. Just back here. Very janky. Doesn't feel good. This issue can be fixed if I go into the settings and I make my arm length longer. Now, I am a taller person, I'm 6'4". I already have my arm length at a setting which is suitable for how long it is in real life. The only way for me to fix this issue is to make my arms stupidly long, so that now I have these obscenely long ape arms that, again, just looks ridiculous and takes you out of the experience. The little details matter very much if immersion is to succeed, and all of these things come together to break it. I'm going to show you some more. And again, as I was trying to put the item onto the top shelf, you'll note, well, you can see for yourself, and hopefully you can understand why this is immersion-shatteringly janky. The fact that I've had to set my arms to a stupid ape length is going to cause more janky issues as I attempt to interact with the rest of the world, as my arms will now get caught in objects and have a seizure constantly, especially if I'm holding a weapon. Look at that! Because I've had to set my arm length so long, it looks absolutely absurd. It's very janky and really takes you out of the experience. You don't take things seriously when it looks like this. Oh, don't do this. Make it so that the arm is straight, and make it so that it's the hand which is changing rather than the entire arm. Another consequence of the longer arms, I think, or being taller, is that there's an item here that I want to pick up, so rather than use the teleportation, I will reach over and there you go. You will get teleported up. This is janky and takes you out of the experience. So I'm exploring this hangar. It's all dark and creepy and very atmospheric, and I have my torch, and it's all very good. I spy a suite here, and I go to grab it, and I can't grab it because for some reason various objects are grippable where you can climb them, and this one is, and so I can't grab this. And yes, I can teleport it to my hand, but again, it's very janky, it takes you out of the world, and kills the immersion. I'm standing over a box, and I lean down to open it, and again, my character teleports on top of the box, taking me out of the experience. There is a shotgun here, and I go to grab it to put it onto my backpack, and you'll note again with my silly long ape arms, and the very janky physics, it will sort of twitch and collide with things, and it just looks awful. And again, I grab the torch from here, and my arm has a seizure, and this is nearly any time that you grab something that is nearby some kind of collider, your arm will just have a seizure, and twist and contort, and it really takes you out of things. When I say the jank is constant, this is what I mean. I encountered something over there with the candy bar. I encountered another thing when picking up a weapon from the weapon crate, and now here as well. This is all within 40 seconds, and it's constant all the time, any interactions. So hopefully this can illustrate the point better than me just dropping a weapon. And yes, I can use the teleport grip, but that's not the point. The point is that in VR you would naturally reach out and grab things, and so these details have to be well considered and polished. Note that when you grab an item here, see how my arm will jarringly twitch and judder? This is janky, and it takes me out of the experience. These are fundamental things about VR which need to be properly polished, otherwise if you want to be immersed, it breaks the immersion. And it does not feel good at all to see and perform in VR. One of the key things that you have to do in this game, which is to explore and open drawers and scavenge and all of that stuff, and immediately just attempting to open a drawer takes me out of the experience because your hands will phase through the drawers and without gripping will open and close them like that, multiple drawers at once, alongside your hand again and your arm having a seizure whilst it does so. So you have to be extra careful as a player in order to grip just before you don't touch the drawer, otherwise all kinds of janky physics collisions will happen. Having to consider and think about this as a player who just wants to be in the world and engross themselves and engage is just not on. It's janky and it takes you out of the experience. Again, I want to move my hand away, but I'm dragging the drawers with me. I'm just exploring, I'm checking drawers, scavenging for items, and so on and so forth, and I am fighting with the physics and the jank every step of the way. Filing cabinets in particular are very janky in that you can outstretch to open one, and sometimes it will block your arm from gripping entirely, and then sometimes you'll just phase through. Again, my arm is now stuck, my controller is here, and it's just, yeah. Sure you get my point by now. And do remember that what you've seen here is essentially the entire gameplay loop, except for fighting enemies. You are in places, there are lots of drawers, lots of cupboards that you have to go through and search, or if you want to, and this stuff is happening all the time. And here's a bit more jank for you, so it seems any kind of incline or decline, if you drop an item around there, the item will fall through. Now for someone who isn't paying attention to the force grip teleport thingamajiggy, then they may think the item has been lost forever. This is especially prevalent when you die as well. If I were to die over here, then your items will fan out and drop from your backpack in a circular motion, and it seems that they just go through the environment no matter what. I'm going to get myself killed next to the rock here, and hopefully I can demonstrate items fanning out and fall. Oh, and my arm has decided to now have a seizure next to the rock. Here's my controller. So yeah, I'll die here, and hopefully that will demonstrate items falling through the rock. So here is my corpse, and whilst a lot of my items have managed to not make it into the rock, if I now walk up to the rock here, you'll note that not only is the collision completely off and causes my arms to have a seizure, but there is an item stuck inside the rock there. This will happen quite randomly, depending on the object and so on, but yes, it's still very janky, and it massively takes you out of the experience. Oh, there's an item up here as well. So again, it's just, these small details matter very much for a game that tries to achieve what this game tries to achieve. Again, we're just approaching this little house, and note all of the CPU frame stutters going over the threshold. You really feel this in VR. It's janky and it's not good. The optimization and overall performance is still very unstable. Again, very unstable performance. For whatever reason, just daring to approach this shelf with items on it is causing severe frame stutter. Another note on performance. We have an M16 here. Put it onto automatic. Cock that back, and then if we fire it on full auto, you can see that. absolutely tanks your frame rates, and I'm running a very powerful system, a 3080 Ti. That, again, takes you out of the experience. The optimization really needs work here. Do it again. Absolutely destroys your system. Just buying this item here, and my controller is over here, but because my arms are so long again, and I'm aiming on get, my arm is having a seizure, stuck on things. Yeah. And we're going to check this with another weapon just to make sure the frame rate issue is not exclusive to the M4. No, it is not. Grab the Mosin here. From its starting resting position, immediately the gun will glitch into the environment and your arm will have a seizure, and yeah. I mentioned in my original video about the bolt slide being only 30 FPS or something. It seems like it's a different frame rate. It's not a big thing, but again, it adds up. As I mentioned, the key point is you have all of these little strange behaviors which are occurring all the time, and they all add up to remove you from the experience. So I'm standing next to my stock of items here that I've collected in this other save, and you can see that my CPU frame time is greatly suffering for whatever reason. Maybe it's the light, I don't know, but standing next to items, which is one of the core parts of the gameplay loop, causes significant performance issues. Again, it really takes you out of things, and you can feel the juddering, and you can feel the jankiness and the slow motion as you look through the headset. Now, stacking items together is something that you'll often do because you collect items, you scavenge, all of that stuff, and then when you go to grab them, depending on the configuration, you may note as well that items will get flung around based upon the physics of how you grip the item. Now, the examples of this can be quite extreme depending on the placement, and it's difficult to actually try and set up the placement, but when you naturally play and you put things together and you gather, this will happen to you. Guaranteed it will happen to you often. You'll pick something up, and then as a result something else will fling itself across the room. Maybe this happens more on 120 FPS. Maybe it's to do with how the physics are connected to the frame rate. Who knows? That's not my job really to care about. That's the developers. But yeah, so all very janky, all feels very unstable, and overall pulls you out of the world and the experience because you're ever aware of the physics, the arms having a seizure when you grab things, and just the behavior of the game being very unstable and, again, janky. To really drive home the point of what I'm trying to say about how immersion breaking these little tiny details and jank can be, I'm going to give you a sort of immersive narrative as if I am the character commentary or a narrator about my experience going through this creepy bunker. So here we go. What are these enemies? Maybe I can find something in this bunker. Whoa, what the hell? Oh, it stings so much. What was that? Some kind of anomaly? It doesn't seem to like the light. Make my way slowly. Keep the light on it. Make it burn so much. Okay. No more around here. Not many items. A lighter would come in handy. Could come in handy. What happened to this place? Oh, my leg, it still burns. More of this stuff here. Maybe I'll find something useful in this crate. TT. (9 by 18). I'll take what I can get. Oh, finally, I found some food. I'm so hungry. I think the company may want to use that. Could be valuable. Now, this place is creepy. Gotta be careful of that grass. It's like the whole place is frozen in time. There might be some useful items in here. We should check. Did I get it? I need to reload. Yep. My shell. Ah. The only thing really that does behave relatively stable in this game is when you are just wandering around the outside areas and going from place to place. When you actually try to start interacting and gripping things and doing things, again, it all falls apart. All little bits of jank all takes you out of the experience. I think I'm pretty much done here, so hopefully this can give you all a much better example of what I was talking about when I mean the jank is constant. And it is constant, it's happening all the time, and in any other game that doesn't seek to achieve the immersion that this game does, it wouldn't matter so much, it can be more forgivable. But when you set the standard, everything has to adhere to a certain level of quality in order to achieve that standard, and I believe it is fair enough for me to critique these very unstable, janky interactions which you do all the time as greatly detracting from the game experience. Hopefully I've done a better job at demonstrating some of my complaints to you in the original video now. I apologize for the lack of quality and lack of consideration that I put into the original review. It definitely was not a standard, and I will do better next time. In general, I think I will avoid making these kind of critical videos unless absolutely necessary, as they're just not fun to make. I would rather focus on things that are exciting and enjoyable and unique for VR, rather than put so much energy into highlighting all of the faults and failures that, whilst I think are important and valid to point out that we can improve things, still is quite demoralizing, as the VR landscape for games at the moment is in a rather sensitive, or should we say janky, place with the software quality that we are getting. If we demand higher quality and we point out these flaws in a reasonable way, then the quality of our experiences will improve. Anyway, you all take care. See you next time.